The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the pavement as Andre Jackson maneuvered his delivery truck into a tight parking space in downtown Phoenix. The digital thermometer on his dashboard read 106 degrees, but it felt even hotter in his navy blue uniform, with its company logo emblazoned across the chest. Sweat trickled down his spine as he reached for the electronic scanner and hopped out of the air-conditioned cab into the wall of heat. 8 years of delivering packages throughout Phoenix's sprawling metropolitan area had taught Andre to move efficiently. He grabbed the small stack of parcels destined for the Sterling and Voss building, a gleaming 40-story glass and steel monument to corporate success that dominated this corner of the financial district. The packages weren't particularly heavy, but they were awkward, requiring him to balance them carefully as he navigated through the revolving doors into the blessed relief of the building's climate-controlled lobby. The security guard barely glanced up from his phone as Andre approached the desk. It was Carlos today, a guy who'd been working here almost as long as Andre had been delivering to this building. "Morning, Carlos," Andre said, his voice carrying the warm timbre that had once earned him compliments in his church choir. Carlos looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Hey, Andre. Hot one today, huh? Man, it's brutal out there. Feels like standing in front of an open oven." This brief exchange was a rarity in Andre's day, a moment of human connection, of being seen as more than just the uniform. At 32, Andre had developed a sort of emotional armor against the indifference he encountered daily. The trick was to expect nothing, to find satisfaction in the work itself rather than external validation. Most days, it was enough. He glanced at the delivery manifest on his scanner. "Got some packages for firms on 14, 22, and 37. Carlos nodded, pressing a button to unlock the service elevator. "You know the drill. Service elevator's all yours." Andre thanked him and made his way across the expansive marble lobby. His work boots squeaked slightly against the polished floor, the sound echoing in the cavernous space. The lobby was designed to impress. Soaring ceilings, a massive art installation of twisted metal and colored glass hanging overhead. Sleek leather seating arrangements where visitors waited to be received. It was a space that whispered of money and power, of deals made and fortunes built. The service elevator was tucked away in a back corridor, deliberately hidden from the view of important visitors. Unlike the main elevators with their brushed steel doors and digital displays, this one was purely functional. Dented metal, scuffed flooring, and a persistent smell of cleaning chemicals. Andre had spent enough time in both worlds to understand the message. Some people belonged in the spotlight, others in the shadows. He rode up to the 14th floor first, delivering a small package to a law firm where the receptionist barely acknowledged his existence, signing for the delivery without taking her eyes off her computer screen. It was a familiar routine, one he'd experienced thousands of times. Next was the 22nd floor, home to an accounting firm where at least the administrative assistant smiled and said thank you. The 37th floor was his final stop in this building, Hamilton and Pierce Marketing, one of the city's most prestigious advertising agencies. As the elevator ascended, Andre felt a familiar tightness in his chest. This wasn't his favorite delivery location. Something about the atmosphere there always made him hyper-aware of his uniform, his position, his otherness. The elevator doors slid open to reveal a reception area that screamed modern luxury. The walls were painted a pristine white, adorned with framed advertisements that had won the company numerous awards. A sleek reception desk curved elegantly in front of floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the Phoenix skyline and the distant mountains beyond. Behind the desk sat Melanie, the receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and immaculate makeup who had never once made eye contact with Andre in the 3 years he'd been delivering to this office. Today was no exception. "Delivery for Hamilton and Pierce," Andre said, placing the package on the counter. Without looking up, Melanie pushed a digital signature pad toward him. "Just leave it there." Andre stood patiently, waiting for her to sign for the delivery as required by his company's protocol. After several moments of being ignored, he cleared his throat. "I need a signature, please." With an exaggerated sigh, Melanie finally looked up, her eyes cold and dismissive. "Fine." She scribbled an illegible signature and immediately returned to her computer. "Thank you. Have a nice day," Andre said, his tone professionally pleasant despite the interaction. He'd long ago learned that maintaining his dignity was more important than reacting to rudeness. As he turned to leave, voices drifted from the hallway leading to the main office area. A group of executives emerged, engaged in animated conversation. They were dressed in what Andre had come to recognize as the uniform of success in this world: designer suits, expensive watches, and an air of entitlement that no amount of money could buy, but that privilege often bestowed. "The Riverside account is practically in the bag," said a tall man with slicked-back hair and a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Andre made in a month. Johnson was practically salivating over the presentation. "Your idea to incorporate the augmented reality component was brilliant, Blake," added a woman in a crimson power suit, her voice carrying the crisp authority of someone accustomed to being listened to. Andre moved toward the elevator, trying to make himself invisible as he passed the group. But in the confined space of the reception area, his presence was impossible to ignore completely. Blake, the man in the navy suit, glanced at him briefly, his eyes sliding over Andre's uniform with the casual dismissal of someone regarding furniture rather than a person. Andre kept his expression neutral, pressing the elevator button. The doors didn't open immediately, and he found himself standing awkwardly as the conversation continued around him, as if he weren't there. "Speaking of talent," Blake continued, lowering his voice slightly, but not enough, "Peterson over at Dawson Media is looking to jump ship. Apparently, they've been promoting all these diversity hires over experienced people, and he's fed up." The woman in the crimson suit, Andre had heard others call her Victoria, laughed lightly. "Well, we all know how that usually works out. Remember that disaster at Meridian when they put that woman from accounting in charge of creative?" Blake chuckled. "God, yes. Like putting a delivery guy in charge of a marketing campaign." The group laughed, and Andre felt his ears burning. The elevator doors finally opened, and he stepped inside, keeping his eyes forward, his face a mask of professional indifference. But as the doors closed, he caught Blake's gaze briefly and saw something there that made his stomach twist. Not malice, not even conscious cruelty, but something worse. Complete dismissal, as if Andre were simply an amusing prop in their world rather than a human being with his own thoughts, dreams, and capabilities. As the elevator descended, Andre's carefully constructed emotional armor felt suddenly insufficient. Their laughter echoed in his mind, not because it was directed at him specifically, but because it revealed how they saw him, or rather, how they didn't see him at all. He was just a delivery guy, interchangeable, forgettable, definitely not someone who could ever occupy their world of corner offices and executive decisions. The irony was almost painful. If they had bothered to look beyond the uniform, they might have seen someone very different from their assumptions. Andre Jackson had graduated with honors from Arizona State University with a degree in business administration. He had started delivering packages as a way to pay off student loans, intending it to be temporary. But then his mother had been diagnosed with cancer, and he'd needed the stable income and health insurance. After she passed, he'd just continued. The job wasn't intellectually challenging, but it gave him freedom to pursue his real passion, investing. What those executives would never know was that the unassuming delivery man they'd just dismissed had turned his modest inheritance from his mother, just $25,000, into a portfolio worth over $300,000 through careful, strategic investments in stocks, cryptocurrency, and small business ventures. Andre had a mind for numbers, for patterns, for opportunity. He'd simply never had the chance, or perhaps the confidence, to apply those skills in the corporate world that seemed so determined to exclude people who looked like him. Back in his delivery truck, Andre sat for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. The air conditioning gradually cooled his skin, but did nothing for the burn of indignation he felt inside. This wasn't the first time he'd experienced this kind of dismissal, but something about today, perhaps the casual cruelty, perhaps his own mounting frustration with his circumstances, had gotten under his skin in a way he couldn't shake off. He pulled out his phone and opened his investment portfolio app, looking at the steadily growing numbers that represented his secret life, his true capabilities. The app showed a notification. One of his technology stocks had jumped 15% overnight after a better-than-expected earnings report. His instinct about that company had been right, just as it had been about so many others. Like putting a delivery guy in charge of a marketing campaign, Blake had said, and everyone had laughed. Andre started the truck's engine with more force than necessary. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel something beyond his usual resigned acceptance, a spark of defiance, a determination to prove them wrong. Not for their sake, but for his own. As he pulled away from the curb, merging into Phoenix's midday traffic, Andre made a decision. It was time to stop hiding his light, time to show the world and himself what he was truly capable of. Andre's small apartment in the Arcadia neighborhood of Phoenix wasn't fancy, but it was his sanctuary. He'd chosen it carefully for its central location and reasonable rent, allowing him to save and invest a substantial portion of his income. The one-bedroom unit featured a small balcony overlooking a courtyard with a modest pool, a necessary luxury in the Arizona heat. Inside, the furnishings were minimal but carefully selected. A comfortable leather couch he'd found at an estate sale, a solid oak coffee table, and bookshelves lined with volumes on business, finance, and investment strategy alongside science fiction novels that provided escape from the practicalities of daily life. It was nearly 7 p.m. when Andre finally returned home, exhausted from a day of deliveries in punishing heat. He placed his keys in the ceramic bowl by the door, a piece made by his niece in her high school art class, and headed straight to the shower to wash away the day's sweat and frustration. As hot water cascaded over his tired muscles, he found his mind returning to the scene at Hamilton and Pierce, the dismissive laughter, the casual contempt, the way they had reduced him to nothing more than his uniform, never considering the person wearing it, like putting a delivery guy in charge of a marketing campaign. The words wouldn't leave him alone, because the truth was Andre had ideas, good ones, about marketing, about business strategy, about creating value. He consumed business journals, industry analyses, and market reports with the voracious appetite of someone truly passionate about the subject. He'd even taken some online courses in digital marketing, fascinated by the analytics and psychology behind successful campaigns. After his shower, dressed in comfortable basketball shorts and a faded ASU t-shirt, Andre settled at his desk, the one area of his apartment that hinted at his hidden life. Here, 2 large monitors displayed stock charts, financial news, and investment research. A small whiteboard on the wall was covered with notes about potential opportunities and market trends. This was where Andre spent most of his evenings, building the future that no one at Hamilton and Pierce could imagine him having. He opened his laptop and navigated to his investment portfolio. The balances were impressive for someone on a delivery driver's salary. Stock portfolio, $178,450. Cryptocurrency. Holdings, $47,123. Angel investments in local startups, $85,000. Emergency fund, $32,000. Total assets, $343,273. It wasn't rich by the standards of those executives, but it represented something significant: financial intelligence, discipline, and a vision beyond his current circumstances. And it was growing steadily, month by month, year by year. His phone buzzed with an incoming call. The name Layla flashed on the screen, bringing an immediate smile to his face. His younger sister always had that effect on him. "Hey, sis," he answered, leaning back in his chair. "Please tell me you're not still working at this hour." Layla's voice came through, warm and concerned. Andre chuckled. "Just got home a little while ago, checking my investments." "Any breakthroughs I should know about, Mr. Warren Buffett?" "Actually, yes. That tech stock I told you about? Up 15% today." Layla whistled appreciatively. "Not bad, brother. Not bad at all. So when are you going to quit playing delivery man and actually use that business degree?" It was a familiar question, one she asked at least once a month. Usually, Andre deflected with humor or vague promises about the right opportunity. Tonight, something felt different. "I had an interesting experience today," he said instead. "Oh?" Andre recounted the scene at Hamilton and Pierce, trying to keep his tone light but unable to completely mask the hurt beneath his words. Layla was silent for a moment after he finished. When she spoke, her voice had the sharp edge it always got when she was angry on his behalf. "Those entitled assholes. They wouldn't last a day doing what you do." "Probably not," Andre agreed. "But that's not what bothers me. It's the assumption. The certainty that someone like me could never be someone like them." "And why do you care what they think?" Layla challenged. "You've always said those corporate types are just playing a game you don't want any part of." Andre sighed, struggling to articulate the shift happening within him. "It's not about them specifically. It's about potential. My potential. I've been hiding behind this job, Layla, using Mom's illness as an excuse at first, and then just inertia, comfort, fear." "Fear? You? The guy who put $5,000 into Bitcoin when everyone said it was crazy?" "That's different. Financial risks are calculated. I research, I analyze, I make informed decisions. But putting myself out there personally, risking rejection, failure, confirmation of all those assumptions people make about me, that's scarier." Layla was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "You know what Dad used to say." Andre closed his eyes, hearing his father's deep voice in his memory. "The only failure is never trying." Exactly. And I think he'd say you've been playing it safe for too long. Because their father, James Jackson, had been a constant source of wisdom and encouragement before a heart attack took him when Andre was just 20. A postal worker who had never made much money but had instilled in his children an unwavering belief in their potential, James would indeed have questioned Andre's hesitation to reach higher. "You might be right," Andre admitted. "But making the leap from delivery guy to whatever's next, it's not that simple." "Nothing worth doing ever is," Layla replied, echoing another of their father's favorite sayings. But you've got the skills, the knowledge, and now a pretty impressive financial cushion. What are you waiting for? The question hung in the air between them, demanding an answer Andre wasn't sure he had. After ending the call with Layla, Andre couldn't settle back into his usual evening routine of market research and investment planning. Her question echoed in his mind. What are you waiting for? He stood and walked to the sliding glass door leading to his small balcony, stepping out into the warm evening air. The sun had set, but the heat lingered, a persistent reminder of summer in the desert. In the courtyard below, a couple lounged by the pool, their quiet laughter drifting upward. The Phoenix skyline glittered in the distance, office buildings still lit up with the activity of people working late. People like those executives at Hamilton and Pierce, confident in their place in the world. Andre leaned against the railing, feeling a restlessness he couldn't ignore. 8 years of delivering packages to offices where people like him were rarely seen in positions of authority. 8 years of building his knowledge and financial security in private while being invisible in public. 8 years of playing it safe. His phone buzzed again. A news alert about a company he'd invested in. Automatically, he opened the notification, scanning the article about a potential merger that could significantly impact the stock price. His analytical mind immediately began assessing the implications, the opportunities, the risks, and then it struck him. This was what he was good at: seeing patterns, anticipating movements, understanding the complex dynamics of business in ways that went far beyond the superficial. Yet he had never given himself permission to apply these skills professionally, to step into spaces where he could truly make an impact. What was he waiting for? The answer came with sudden clarity. Validation. Some external confirmation that he belonged in those gleaming office buildings, that his ideas and insights were valuable, that he was more than just a delivery guy. But that validation would never come if he remained in his current role. The Blake Hamiltons of the world would continue to see the uniform, not the man. The only way to change the narrative was to write a new one himself. Andre went back inside and sat at his desk, opening a new document on his laptop. If he was going to make a change, he needed a plan. Methodical, strategic, with clear milestones and contingencies. That was how he approached his investments, and that was how he would approach transforming his life. He began typing, the ideas flowing faster than his fingers could capture them. By midnight, he had the outline of a path forward. Not just vague intentions, but concrete steps toward leveraging his financial knowledge, business education, and unique perspectives into a new career. The plan would require courage, persistence, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. But for the first time in years, Andre felt a sense of purpose that went beyond making it through another day in the Arizona heat. As he finally prepared for bed, he caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror. No uniform now, just a man on the verge of reclaiming his potential. They have no idea who they've been laughing at, he said to his reflection, a hint of determination in his smile. Tomorrow would be another day of deliveries, of being overlooked and underestimated. But it would also be the first day of Andre Jackson's emergence from invisibility, and Hamilton and Pierce marketing would play a role they never could have anticipated. The following weeks took on a new rhythm for Andre. By day, he continued his delivery routes, navigating the familiar streets of Phoenix with packages in tow. But his mindset had shifted. Each delivery, each interaction, each moment of being overlooked now served as fuel rather than discouragement. By night, he worked on his transformation strategy with the same diligence he applied to his investments. Step 1 was education. While Andre had his business degree, The marketing landscape had evolved significantly since his college days. He enrolled in a comprehensive digital marketing certification program through an online platform, spending his evenings immersed in lessons on search engine optimization, social media strategy, content marketing, and analytics. The material came naturally to him, often connecting directly to patterns he'd observed in his investment research. Step 2 was making connections. This proved more challenging. Phoenix had a vibrant business networking scene, but showing up at events as a delivery driver didn't open many doors. Andre's solution was clever. He created business cards identifying himself as Andre Jackson, investment consultant, which was technically true given his self-managed portfolio. This allowed him to engage in business conversations without the immediate dismissal his delivery uniform often triggered. His first networking event was an after-hours mixer at a downtown hotel. Dressed in a crisp button-down shirt and slacks, not expensive but well-fitted and professional, Andre felt like an imposter at first, his confidence wavering as he surveyed the room filled with polished professionals. But he remembered his father's words, "You belong wherever you decide to stand." Taking a deep breath, he approached a small group engaged in conversation about recent market trends. He listened carefully, then ventured a thoughtful comment about the impact of supply chain disruptions on tech sector valuations. The group turned to him with surprise and interest, and suddenly Andre was in, engaging in exactly the kind of substantive business discussion he'd been prepared for all along. "That's an insightful analysis," said a woman who had introduced herself as Dana Chen, an investment advisor. "Are you in finance?" "I manage investments," Andre replied, which was true, if not the complete picture. "But I'm particularly interested in the marketing sector right now. The digital transformation is creating fascinating disruptions and opportunities." By the end of the evening, Andre had collected several business cards and made connections that could prove valuable. More importantly, he'd proven to himself that he could navigate these waters, that when people didn't see the uniform first, they actually listened to what he had to say. Over the following weekends, Andre attended more events, gradually building a network of professional contacts who knew nothing about his day job. He was careful not to misrepresent himself, but he also didn't volunteer information that would trigger the prejudices he was working to overcome. Step 3 of his plan was the most ambitious, gaining insider knowledge of Hamilton and Pierce marketing. The firm that had dismissed him so casually was, ironically, one of the most innovative in the region. Exactly the kind of company where Andre's combination of analytical thinking and marketing knowledge could be valuable. But he needed to understand their operation from the inside to formulate his approach. Here, his position as a delivery driver became an unexpected advantage. 3 times a week, Andre delivered packages to Hamilton and Pierce's offices. He began to pay closer attention during these visits, noting the names on office doors, observing the client materials visible in the conference rooms, overhearing snippets of conversation about campaigns and strategies. One Tuesday morning in late August, Andre arrived at the Hamilton and Pierce offices with a small package addressed to Victoria Reeves, the woman in the crimson suit who had laughed at Blake's joke about delivery drivers. He was directed to take it directly to her office, a rare opportunity to see beyond the reception area. Victoria's corner office was impressive, wall-to-wall windows offering panoramic views of Phoenix, modern art adorning the walls, and a glass desk with multiple monitors displaying what looked like campaign analytics. She barely glanced up when Andre entered. "Just leave it there," she said, gesturing vaguely toward a side table while continuing to type on her keyboard. "I need a signature, Ms. Reeves," Andre said politely. She sighed dramatically and held out her hand for the scanner without looking at him. As she scribbled her signature, Andre's eyes were drawn to the presentation on her computer screen. A pitch for a new client, Sunrise Medical Technologies. He recognized the company immediately. It was one he'd researched for his investment portfolio. The marketing strategy Victoria was developing seemed to miss a crucial element of Sunrise's market positioning. "Thank you," Andre said, retrieving his scanner. Then, taking a calculated risk, he added, "That's an interesting approach for Sunrise Medical." Victoria's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "Excuse me?" "The campaign on your screen," Andre clarified, maintaining a professional tone. "Sunrise's key differentiator is actually their integration with existing hospital systems, not just the technology itself." Their CEO emphasized that in last quarter's earnings call. Victoria stared at him, clearly thrown by hearing market analysis from a delivery person. "How would you possibly know that?" Andre smiled slightly. "I follow healthcare technology companies. Interesting sector." Before she could respond, he continued, "Have a good day, Ms. Reeves," and walked out, leaving her staring after him in confusion. It was a small moment, but as Andre returned to his delivery truck, he felt a shift in the power dynamic. For just a brief instant, Victoria had seen him, not just the uniform, but the mind behind it. The look of confusion on her face had been worth the risk of speaking up. Over the next few weeks, Andre created more such moments. Brief, strategic interactions where he revealed glimpses of his knowledge to key people at Hamilton and Pierce. A comment about market trends to an account manager in the elevator. A question about a visible campaign strategy to a creative director he encountered in the lobby. Each time, he left behind a moment of confusion, a disruption of assumptions. Meanwhile, his studies in digital marketing were progressing rapidly. Andre had always been a quick learner, and the material fascinated him. He began applying his new knowledge to analyze Hamilton and Pierce's public campaigns, identifying strengths and weaknesses, opportunities they were missing, innovations they could implement. By early October, 2 months into his transformation plan, Andre had completed his certification program with distinction. He had built a professional network that included several marketing executives and business leaders in Phoenix, and most importantly, he had compiled a detailed understanding of Hamilton and Pierce's business approach, client portfolio, and market positioning. Step 4 was the most daunting: creating an opportunity. Andre knew that simply applying for a position at Hamilton and Pierce with his delivery experience prominently on his resume would get him nowhere. He needed to demonstrate his value in a way that couldn't be ignored. The opportunity came in an unexpected form. During a networking event at a local business incubator, Andre met Sarah Okafor, a brilliant software engineer who had developed an innovative consumer behavior tracking platform, but lacked the marketing expertise to bring it to market effectively. "The technology is solid," Sarah explained, her passion evident as she described the platform's capabilities. "But I don't know how to position it, how to reach the right clients, how to make them understand its value." Andre listened carefully, his mind already connecting dots between Sarah's technology and what he knew about Hamilton and Pierce's client needs. "What if," he suggested, "we created a case study, a targeted marketing campaign for your platform, focused on specific high-value potential clients?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "You can do that?" "I can," Andre confirmed, feeling only a slight twinge of imposter syndrome. "And I have some ideas about who might be very interested in what you've developed." Over the next 3 weeks, Andre and Sarah worked closely together, with Andre applying everything he'd learned about digital marketing to create a comprehensive campaign strategy for her platform. He focused particularly on applications that would appeal to the kind of clients Hamilton and Pierce served, creating detailed analyses of how the platform could enhance their marketing effectiveness. The resulting presentation was professional, insightful, and innovative, exactly the kind of work that would command attention in the marketing world. Andre had found his demonstration piece, his evidence that he was far more than just a delivery driver. Now he needed to ensure it reached the right eyes at Hamilton and Pierce, and for that, he had a plan that would bring his journey full circle, a plan that centered on the very people who had laughed at the idea of a delivery guy understanding their business. The stage was set for a confrontation that would either launch Andre's new career or confirm all his fears about stepping outside the boundaries others had set for him. Either way, there would be no going back to invisibility. November in Phoenix brought relief from the punishing summer heat, with temperatures dropping to the pleasant 70s during the day. The change in weather matched Andre's internal shift, a cooling of old insecurities, a refreshing clarity of purpose. His plan had crystallized around a specific opportunity: the Phoenix Business Innovation Awards, an annual event where local companies showcased their most creative marketing campaigns and strategies. Hamilton and Pierce regularly participated and had won several times in previous years. This year, the event included a new category: Emerging Technologies in Marketing, a perfect showcase for Sarah's platform with Andre's marketing strategy. Through his networking connections, Andre had secured an invitation to the submission review panel, where he would present Sarah's platform and his marketing approach to industry leaders. He knew from his information gathering that Blake Hamilton and Victoria Reeves would be attending on behalf of Hamilton and Pierce. The stage was set for a reveal that would shatter their perceptions. The week before the event, Andre continued his deliveries to Hamilton and Pierce as usual, giving no indication of what was coming. On his final delivery before the awards, he encountered Blake Hamilton in the lobby, engaged in a heated phone conversation. "I understand the concerns, Mr. Dawson, but I assure you our team has the innovative capacity to address your market challenges," Blake was saying, his tone betraying a desperation that suggested the conversation wasn't going well. "If you could just delay your decision until after the Innovation Awards." Andre recognized the name. Dawson Media was one of the largest potential clients in the region, a prize that any marketing agency would covet. As he passed Blake on his way to the elevator, their eyes met briefly. Blake gave him the same dismissive glance as always, clearly not registering Andre as anything more than a delivery uniform. 3 days later, Andre stood in his apartment, adjusting the tie on his charcoal gray suit, purchased specially for this occasion, the most expensive clothing he'd ever owned. The man in the mirror looked different from the delivery driver who had been invisible for so long, confident, purposeful, ready to step into a new identity. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Ready to show them what we've got?" Andre smiled as he typed his reply. "More than ready. See you there." The Phoenix Convention Center was illuminated for the evening event, its modern architecture glowing against the darkening sky. Inside, the ballroom was arranged with display areas for each submission, along with a central stage for presentations and announcements. Business leaders from across Arizona mingled, examining the innovative campaigns on display. Andre spotted Blake Hamilton and Victoria Reeves near the bar, engaged in conversation with what appeared to be potential clients. Blake looked impeccable, as always, in a tailored suit, his confidence on full display despite the pressure Andre knew he was under with the Dawson Media account. Sarah was waiting at their assigned presentation space, nervous energy evident in her quick movements as she made final adjustments to their digital display. Their booth was modest compared to the elaborate setups of established agencies like Hamilton and Pierce, but the content was compelling. Detailed analytics showing how Sarah's consumer behavior platform could revolutionize targeted marketing. "They're all here," Sarah whispered as Andre joined her. Major players from every significant agency and corporation in Phoenix. Andre nodded, scanning the room. Good. That's exactly what we want. The event began with opening remarks from the organizers, followed by a period where attendees could visit the various displays. Andre noticed several people stopping at their booth, intrigued by the data visualizations and case studies he had prepared. But Blake and Victoria remained across the room, unaware of his presence. The moment of truth came when the presentations for the Emerging Technologies in Marketing category began. As the second presenters in the lineup, Andre and Sarah watched the first team finish to polite applause. Then the moderator announced, "Next, presenting Behavioral Analytics Revolution, the Future of Targeted Marketing. Please welcome Sarah Okafor and Andre Jackson." As they took the stage, Andre caught sight of Blake and Victoria in the audience. There was no recognition yet. From this distance, in this context, they didn't connect him to the delivery driver they encountered weekly. Their expressions showed only mild interest as they awaited another presentation. Andre began their presentation with confidence, his voice clear and commanding as he outlined the marketing challenges their platform addressed. As he spoke, he watched understanding slowly dawn on Victoria's face, the gradual realization that she had seen this man before, but not in a suit, not commanding a room with market insights. Blake remained oblivious until Andre directly referenced a marketing strategy similar to what he had overheard at Hamilton and Pierce. This approach parallels methods some agencies are currently employing with healthcare technology clients like Sunrise Medical, but with a crucial difference in the analytics integration. Blake's head snapped up, his brow furrowing as he studied Andre more carefully. Andre continued smoothly, transitioning to Sarah's portion of the presentation where she demonstrated the technical capabilities of the platform. Throughout her section, Andre was aware of Blake and Victoria whispering to each other, their expressions shifting from confusion to disbelief. When they returned to Andre for the conclusion, he made direct eye contact with Blake and Victoria. The future of marketing lies not in assumptions, but in understanding. Not in surface impressions, but in depth of analysis. Our platform allows marketers to see beyond the obvious, to recognize value where others might miss it entirely. The message beneath his words was clear to those who needed to hear it. As they finished to enthusiastic applause, Andre felt a weight lifting. Years of being underestimated, of being invisible, channeled into this moment of unmistakable capability. During the networking reception that followed, Andre and Sarah were approached by several interested potential clients. Andre was discussing implementation strategies with a technology company representative when he felt a presence at his elbow. "Mr. Jackson, isn't it?" Blake Hamilton's voice carried forced casualness. "Very impressive presentation." Andre turned, extending his hand with professional courtesy. "Mr. Hamilton, thank you." "I can't help feeling we've met before," Blake continued, studying Andre's face with newfound attention. "We have," Andre confirmed, maintaining eye contact. "I deliver packages to your office 3 times a week." The impact of this statement on Blake was immediate. A visible flinch, followed by an attempt to regain composure. I see. That's unexpected." "Is it?" Andre asked mildly. "Or is it simply that you saw the uniform rather than the person wearing it?" Before Blake could respond, they were interrupted by an older man with silver hair and an expensive suit. "Excuse me," he said, extending his hand to Andre. "Michael Dawson, Dawson Media. That was quite a presentation, young man. I'm particularly interested in how your platform might address some of our current market challenges." Blake's expression froze as he recognized the potential client he had been desperately trying to secure. Andre shook Michael Dawson's hand firmly. Thank you, Mr. Dawson. I'd be happy to discuss specific applications for your company. Excellent, Dawson replied. Perhaps we could set up a meeting next week. I've been evaluating several agencies for our new campaign, but your approach offers something different. We would welcome that opportunity, Andre said, including Sarah in the conversation with a gesture. As they discussed possibilities, Blake remained rooted in place, watching a major business opportunity unfold before him, with the delivery guy he had dismissed at its center. When Dawson moved on to other presentations, Blake cleared his throat. Mr. Jackson, I think perhaps we should talk. Your insights are clearly valuable. Maybe there's a way we could collaborate on the Dawson account. The offer was transparent in its opportunism, but Andre recognized it for what it was. The first time Blake Hamilton had seen him as a professional equal rather than a service worker. It represented exactly the validation he had been seeking for years. Yet in that moment, Andre realized something important. He no longer needed Blake's validation. The weeks of preparation, of strategic networking, of applying his skills to real business challenges, had shown him that his value existed independently of others' recognition. His worth wasn't determined by Blake Hamilton or Victoria Reeves or anyone at Hamilton and Pierce. I appreciate the offer, Andre replied, his voice calm and measured. But I think Sarah and I will pursue the Dawson opportunity independently. Our approach seems to resonate with Mr. Dawson's needs. Blake's confident facade cracked slightly. You're turning down a collaboration with Hamilton and Pierce? Do you understand what kind of doors our firm could open for you? I do, Andre said, just as I understand what it means when those doors remain closed to people like me until you suddenly find us useful. Victoria approached, clearly having observed the exchange from a distance. Blake, is everything all right? Her eyes moved between Blake's unsettled expression and Andre's composed one, recognition finally dawning. You're the delivery person, the one who commented on the Sunrise campaign. Andre Jackson, he confirmed, extending his hand. Digital marketing strategist and investment analyst. Victoria shook his hand automatically, professional training overriding her confusion. I don't understand. You deliver packages. I did, Andre corrected her. It was how I paid the bills while building my investment portfolio and developing my marketing expertise. Starting tomorrow, I'll be focusing on my consulting practice full-time. The revelation hung in the air between them. Victoria and Blake exchanged glances, clearly recalibrating their understanding of the man standing before them. The man they had laughed at, dismissed, rendered invisible through their assumptions. Well, Blake said finally, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Congratulations on your career change. If you reconsider the collaboration, you have my card. As they walked away, Andre turned back to Sarah, who had been watching the exchange with undisguised fascination. What just happened? She asked. You turned down Hamilton and Pierce? They're like the agency in Phoenix. Andre smiled. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't accepting an opportunity, but creating your own. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, discussions, and connections. By the time Andre and Sarah left the convention center, they had arranged meetings with 3 potential clients, including Dawson Media, and had received enthusiastic feedback on their platform and marketing strategy. Standing outside in the pleasant November evening, Sarah turned to Andre with an excited grin. We did it! I mean, you did it! I just made the tech. You're the one who made people see its value. We did it together, Andre corrected her. Your technology is revolutionary. I just helped tell its story effectively. Sarah studied him thoughtfully. You know, when we first met, I never would have guessed you had this whole secret life beyond your delivery job. It's like a superhero origin story or something. Mild-mannered delivery guy by day, marketing genius by night. Andre laughed. Hardly a superhero, just someone who got tired of being underestimated. As they parted ways, promising to meet the next day to prepare for their upcoming client meetings, Andre felt a profound sense of transition. The Arizona sky stretched above him, vast and filled with possibilities, as he walked to his car. Not the delivery truck he had driven for 8 years, but his own modest sedan that now felt like a chariot carrying him into a new chapter. 3 months passed in a whirlwind of activity. Andre and Sarah's partnership had evolved into a formal business entity, Perception Analytics, with Sarah focusing on technology development and Andre handling marketing strategy and client relationships. The Dawson Media contract had been their first major success, followed by 2 additional clients who had approached them after the Innovation Awards. Andre had given notice at his delivery job the day after the awards ceremony, using some of his investment savings to sustain himself during the transition to entrepreneurship. The move was calculated, but still carried risk. Exactly the kind of strategic gamble he had trained himself to evaluate through years of investment experience. Their new office was modest. A small suite in a co-working space in downtown Phoenix with glass walls, modern furniture, and most importantly, their names on the door. For Andre, seeing Andre Jackson, co-founder and chief strategy officer, etched on frosted glass, was a daily reminder of how far he had come from being the invisible man in a delivery uniform. On a crisp February morning, Andre sat at his desk, reviewing the quarterly results for their Dawson Media campaign. The numbers were impressive. Engagement up 47%, conversion rates improved by 32%, and most importantly, Dawson's revenue showing a corresponding 28% increase. Michael Dawson had already referred them to 2 additional potential clients based on these results. Sarah burst into his office, tablet in hand, her usual energy amplified by obvious excitement. "You're not going to believe this," she said, placing the tablet in front of him. The screen displayed a business news article with the headline, "Hamilton and Pierce Marketing Faces Restructuring Amid Client Losses and Financial Pressure." Andre skimmed the article with interest. According to the report, Hamilton and Pierce had lost several major accounts in recent months, including Sunrise Medical, which had shifted their business to a competitor offering more innovative analytics solutions. The firm was now facing financial challenges that had prompted a restructuring effort, including potential layoffs. "They're struggling," Sarah said, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from her voice. "And we're thriving." Andre leaned back in his chair, processing this information with more complex emotions than he had anticipated. There was a certain poetic justice in the situation. The firm that had dismissed him so casually now facing difficulties while his own venture succeeded. Yet he took no pleasure in the thought of people losing their jobs, even those who had treated him poorly. "Interesting timing," he said finally. "I just received an email this morning that might relate to this." He turned his computer monitor toward Sarah, showing an email from Victoria Reeves. The message was brief but direct. "Mr. Jackson, I hope this finds you well. I've been following Perception Analytics' success with interest, particularly your innovative work with Dawson Media. I'm reaching out to inquire about the possibility of meeting to discuss potential professional opportunities. My contact information is below. Regards, Victoria Reeves." "She's looking for a job," Sarah concluded immediately. "Hamilton and Pierce is sinking, and she's looking for a lifeboat." "Possibly," Andre agreed, "though she might also be exploring a partnership or acquisition on behalf of Hamilton and Pierce. Either way, it's worth hearing what she has to say." "Are you seriously considering hiring her, after how she treated you?" Sarah looked incredulous. Andre smiled slightly. I'm considering listening to her. What happens beyond that depends on what she has to offer, and whether she sees me as a person worth respecting now. 2 days later, Andre sat in a small conference room at their co-working space, waiting for Victoria Reeves. He had deliberately chosen this setting rather than meeting at a restaurant or coffee shop. He wanted this conversation to happen on his territory, in a space that represented his new professional identity. Victoria arrived precisely on time, dressed in a sleek gray suit that exuded professionalism but lacked the flashy confidence of her attire at Hamilton and Pierce. As Andre stood to greet her, he noticed subtle changes in her demeanor, a tightness around her eyes suggesting stress, a slightly less imperious posture. "Miss Reeves, thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she replied, her voice carefully controlled as she took the offered seat. "Your company has made quite an impression in a very short time." "We've been fortunate," Andre acknowledged, "but I suspect you didn't request this meeting to discuss our success." Victoria hesitated, clearly recalibrating her approach. In their previous interactions, she had held all the power, the executive to his delivery person. Now the dynamic was reversed, and her discomfort with this shift was evident. "You're right," she said finally. "I'll be direct. Hamilton and Pierce is undergoing significant changes. The marketing landscape is evolving rapidly, and the firm has been slow to adapt, particularly in the analytics space where your company has shown such innovation." Andre nodded, waiting for her to continue. "Blake and the senior partners are resistant to necessary changes," Victoria went on, choosing her words carefully. "They believe our traditional approach and reputation will be sufficient to weather current challenges." "And you disagree?" Andre prompted when she paused. "I do." Her professional mask slipped slightly, revealing genuine concern. "The firm has lost 3 major clients in the past quarter. The Dawson account was a particularly significant blow. They represented 15% of our annual revenue." Andre allowed himself a moment of satisfaction at this confirmation of their impact, but kept his expression neutral. "And how does this concern relate to perception analytics?" Victoria straightened in her chair, visibly gathering her resolve. "I'm interested in joining your team, Mr. Jackson. My experience in traditional marketing strategies would complement your analytics focus, creating a more comprehensive offering for clients." There it was, the request Andre had anticipated. Victoria Reeves, who had once laughed at the idea of a delivery driver understanding marketing, was now asking that same delivery driver for a job. "That's an interesting proposition," Andre said carefully. "You have impressive experience and client relationships that could certainly benefit a growing firm." Hope flickered in Victoria's eyes, but Andre wasn't finished. "However," he continued, "I have some concerns about cultural fit. Perception analytics operates on principles of respect and recognition of value regardless of title or background. Our environment has no place for the kind of hierarchical assumptions I experienced at Hamilton and Pierce." Victoria flinched slightly at the implied criticism. "If you're referring to our previous interactions when you were delivering packages, I am," Andre confirmed, his tone remaining professional but firm. "Those interactions revealed attitudes that wouldn't align with our company culture." Victoria was quiet for a moment, her expression suggesting an internal struggle. When she spoke again, her voice had lost some of its practiced polish. "You're right," she admitted, the words clearly difficult for her. The way we at Hamilton and Pierce treated service workers, treated you, was dismissive and disrespectful. I didn't see beyond the uniform to the person wearing it, and that was my failure." The admission surprised Andre. He had expected defensiveness or perhaps a strategic apology, not this apparent sincerity. What changed your perspective? He asked, genuinely curious. Victoria's gaze dropped to her hands, then returned to meet his eyes directly. Honestly? Watching you at the Innovation Awards, seeing what you had accomplished while we were dismissing you. And then, these past few months, seeing perception analytics succeed with approaches I had advocated for at Hamilton and Pierce but was overruled on. She paused, then added, and perhaps being on the receiving end of similar dismissal myself recently. Having my concerns ignored by the partners because I'm just a woman in creative, not one of the real executives. Andre nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in her words. Prejudice and dismissal came in many forms, creating invisible barriers for different people in different contexts. I appreciate your honesty, he said. It can't have been easy to come here today. It wasn't, Victoria acknowledged, but necessary changes rarely are. Andre considered the situation carefully. The business case for bringing Victoria onto their team was strong. She had valuable experience, client relationships, and skills that would complement their current offerings. The personal dynamics were more complicated, but her apparent self-awareness suggested potential for a productive professional relationship. Here's what I propose, he said finally. A 3-month contract position as a strategic consultant. This gives both of us the opportunity to determine if there's a good fit for a permanent role. Your compensation would include a base rate plus performance incentives tied to client acquisition and retention. Relief washed over Victoria's face, quickly replaced by professional composure. That seems fair. I would welcome the opportunity to demonstrate my value to perception analytics. Good, Andre said, extending his hand across the table. I'll have Sarah draft the contract, and we can begin next week. As they shook hands, Andre felt the circle completing. From invisible delivery person to respected business leader, from being dismissed to being sought after. But the victory wasn't in Victoria's reversal or Hamilton and Pierce's struggles. It was in creating something valuable and being recognized for his true capabilities. After Victoria left, Andre stood at the window of the conference room, looking out at the Phoenix skyline. The familiar buildings caught the afternoon sun, glass facades gleaming against the clear blue Arizona sky. Somewhere in that landscape was the Sterling and Voss building, where he had delivered packages for years, feeling invisible and undervalued. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the initial hurt of being dismissed, the determination it had sparked, the strategic steps he had taken to transform his life. None of it had been easy, but all of it had been necessary. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. How did it go with Victoria? Andre typed back. She's joining us as a consultant. I think it's the right move. Sarah's response came quickly. Wow. Full circle moment. Does this mean we're the bosses of someone who used to look down on you? Andre smiled at the screen, understanding Sarah's satisfaction, but seeing the situation differently. No, he wrote. It means we're building something valuable enough to attract talented people, regardless of the past. As he put his phone away, Andre reflected on what his father would have thought of all this. James Jackson had always believed in his children's potential, had always urged them to reach beyond the boundaries others set for them. Don't let anyone else define your ceiling, he used to say. The only limits that matter are the ones you accept for yourself. Those words had guided Andre through this transformation. From the moment of humiliation in Hamilton and Pierce's gleaming offices to this new reality where he defined his own value and others recognized it. The journey wasn't complete. Building perception analytics into the company he envisioned would take years of work, innovation, and strategic growth. But he had proven, to himself most importantly, that he was far more than what others assumed him to be. and that was worth more than any revenge could ever be. 1 year later, Perception Analytics had outgrown its modest co-working space. Their new offices occupied half of the 15th floor in a sleek building in downtown Phoenix, with views of Camelback Mountain in the distance. The space reflected the company's evolution, professional but not ostentatious, innovative but grounded, with an open design that encouraged collaboration while still providing quiet areas for focused work. Andre stood in his office, adjusting the framed article on the wall, a feature in Phoenix Business Journal highlighting Perception Analytics as one of the city's fastest-growing marketing firms. The piece emphasized their unique approach combining advanced analytics with strategic marketing insights, with particular attention to Andre and Sarah's unlikely partnership and rapid success. A knock at his open door drew his attention. Victoria stood there, tablet in hand, looking very different from the imperious executive he had first encountered at Hamilton and Pierce. Her style was still polished, but less rigid, and she carried herself with a confidence that no longer required arrogance to sustain it. "The quarterly reports are ready for review," she said, entering when Andre gestured her in. "And we've received another inquiry from Westfield Insurance about potential services." After her 3-month consulting contract, Victoria had joined Perception Analytics full-time as their client relations director. The transition had not been without challenges. There had been moments of tension, old habits resurfacing, assumptions that needed to be addressed. But Victoria had proven her value repeatedly, bringing in several significant clients and adapting well to the more collaborative culture Andre and Sarah had established. "Thanks," Andre said, taking the tablet and scanning the financial highlights. "These numbers look strong." The Johnson campaign exceeded projections by 17%. Sarah's predictive model made all the difference there, Victoria acknowledged, giving credit where it was due, something she had learned to do more naturally over the past year. "Speaking of Sarah, have you seen her this morning? We need to finalize the presentation for tomorrow's pitch." Victoria nodded. "She's in the lab, working with the new analytics team. She said she'd be ready for your meeting at 11. As Victoria turned to leave, Andre called after her. "How are you feeling about the Blake situation?" She paused, her expression complex. "Honestly, mixed emotions. It's not how I would have wanted things to end at Hamilton and Pierce." The Blake situation referred to recent business news. Blake Hamilton had been removed as partner at Hamilton and Pierce following a series of client losses and financial missteps. The once prestigious firm had been acquired by a larger agency and was being completely restructured, with most of the original leadership team departing. "Understandable," Andre said. "Despite everything, you spent years building your career there." Victoria nodded, then added with a small smile, "Though I can't deny a certain poetic justice in how things turned out." After she left, Andre turned back to the window, reflecting on the journey of the past 18 months. What had begun as a response to dismissal and disrespect had evolved into something far more meaningful, a thriving business built on genuine innovation and respect for all contributors, regardless of their background or position. Perception Analytics now employed 27 people, including several who had previously worked in service roles similar to Andre's former delivery position. Andre had made a point of creating opportunities for people whose talents might be overlooked by traditional corporate structures, establishing a paid internship program specifically targeted at community college students from underrepresented backgrounds. His phone buzzed with a text from Layla. "Lunch today? Have news." Andre smiled, typing back his agreement. His sister had recently completed her MBA and had been interviewing for positions at several companies. Their weekly lunches had become a cherished tradition as both their careers evolved. Later, at a small bistro near his office, Andre watched with pride as Layla described her new position as a financial analyst at a renewable energy firm. Her excitement was contagious as she outlined the projects she would be working on and the impact she hoped to make. "Dad would be so proud of us both," she said, as they finished their meals. "Remember how he used to say we'd change the world someday?" Andre nodded, remembering their father's unfailing belief in their potential. He never doubted it for a second. "Speaking of changing the world," Layla continued, "I heard Hamilton and Pierce is officially no more. The acquiring company is completely rebranding it." "I heard," Andre acknowledged. "Victoria mentioned it this morning. How do you feel about it? Vindicated? Satisfied? You basically outlasted the company that looked down on you." Andre considered the question seriously. "Mostly, I feel focused on our own path. What happened with Hamilton and Pierce is less important than what we're building at Perception Analytics." Layla studied him with a knowing smile. "Look at you, all evolved and mature. But come on, there must be a small part of you that enjoys knowing Blake Hamilton is out of a job while you're thriving." "Maybe a very small part," Andre admitted with a slight smile. "But success is the best response to being underestimated. Creating something valuable matters more than proving others wrong." As they walked back toward his office after lunch, Andre's phone rang with a call from Sarah. "Andre, you need to get back here," she said without preamble, excitement evident in her voice. "The Meridian Group just contacted us about their national campaign. They want a presentation next week in Chicago." The Meridian Group was a Fortune 500 company whose business would represent a major leap forward for perception analytics. Andre quickened his pace, already mentally outlining their approach for the presentation. "I'll be there in 5 minutes. Get the team together in the main conference room." Saying goodbye to Layla, he hurried back to the office, energy surging through him. This was what drove him now. Not proving Blake Hamilton wrong, not overcoming past dismissals, but building something meaningful, creating opportunities, solving complex problems for clients who valued their expertise. As he entered the Perception Analytics offices, he passed the reception area where Tanya, their front desk coordinator, greeted him warmly. Unlike Melanie at Hamilton and Pierce, Tanya made a point of acknowledging everyone who entered, regardless of their apparent status or position. "Big news about Meridian," she said with a grin. "Sarah's already got everyone fired up in the conference room." "Thanks, Tanya. Any other messages I should know about?" "Just one. Blake Hamilton called. Said he wanted to discuss mutual opportunities. I told him you were in meetings all day, but would return his call if interested." Andre paused, surprised by this development. Blake Hamilton reaching out to him, undoubtedly looking for a position now that he was no longer at Hamilton and Pierce. The irony was almost too perfect. "Thanks," he said to Tanya. "I'll decide about that later. The Meridian situation takes priority." In the conference room, Sarah was already leading an animated discussion with the core team, her energy infectious as always. Victoria was taking notes, adding occasional strategic insights about Meridian's market position. Two analysts were pulling up relevant data on the presentation screen, while the creative team brainstormed initial concepts. Andre took his place at the table, observing for a moment before joining the conversation. This was what success looked like. Not a corner office with a view, not having power over others who once dismissed you, but creating a community of talented people working together toward shared goals, each valued for their unique contributions. Later that evening, after the initial planning for the Meridian presentation was well underway, Andre returned to his office and noticed the blinking light on his desk phone indicating a voice message. He pressed the button, and Blake Hamilton's voice filled the room. "Andre, Blake Hamilton here. I'm sure you've heard about the changes at H&P. I've been following Perception Analytics' impressive growth, and I think there could be mutually beneficial opportunities for us to discuss. My experience and connections could add significant value to your organization. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. And the message contained no acknowledgement of their history, no recognition of the irony in Blake now seeking opportunity from someone he had once laughed at. Just the assumption that his experience and connections would be valuable enough to overcome the past. Andre sat at his desk, considering his options. He could ignore the message entirely, a silent rejection that Blake would eventually understand. He could return the call and politely decline any meeting or opportunity, a more direct but still professional response. Or he could agree to meet Blake, to hear what he had to offer, perhaps even consider bringing him on in some capacity if his skills truly would benefit Perception Analytics. The choice before him represented more than just a business decision. It was a statement about the kind of leader he wanted to be, the kind of company he wanted to build. Would he deny Blake the opportunity to evolve, to contribute, to perhaps learn the lessons that Andre's journey had taught him? Or would he perpetuate the cycle of dismissal and exclusion that he had worked so hard to overcome? Andre reached for the phone, having made his decision. The call was brief but clear. When he hung up, he felt a sense of completion. Not because he had achieved some form of revenge or justice, but because he had remained true to the principles that guided Perception Analytics from its inception. Recognizing value, creating opportunity, and seeing people for their potential rather than their past. As he prepared to leave for the day, Andre stopped by Sarah's office, where she was still working on algorithmic projections for the Meridian presentation. "Going home?" she asked, looking up from her computer. "Yes, but I wanted to update you on something first. Blake Hamilton reached out about a position here." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "You're kidding. What did you say?" "I told him we don't currently have openings that match his skill set, but I'd be willing to meet with him next month to discuss potential consulting opportunities if he's interested in demonstrating his value to us." Sarah studied him with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "That's remarkably gracious, considering your history." Andre smiled slightly. "Not gracious, strategic. If he actually has insights that could benefit our clients, it would be foolish to dismiss them out of hand. And if not, well," he shrugged. "Everyone deserves the chance to be evaluated on their true capabilities, not on assumptions or past mistakes." "Even Blake Hamilton?" Sarah asked skeptically. "Even Blake," Andre confirmed. "Though I did mention that our company culture emphasizes respect for everyone, regardless of title or position, and that we evaluate all team members on both their performance and their alignment with those values." Sarah laughed. "So you're giving him the opportunity to prove he's changed, while making it clear you haven't forgotten." "Something like that," Andre acknowledged. "But mainly, I'm focusing on what's best for Perception Analytics, not on settling old scores." As he left the building and walked to his car, a modest BMW that represented his first significant indulgence after Perception Analytics' success, Andre reflected on how much had changed in less than 2 years. From delivering packages and being invisible to leading a thriving company where everyone was seen and valued. From being dismissed based on assumptions to creating opportunities based on potential. The night was clear, the stars visible despite the city lights. Andre thought about his father's words again. "The only limits that matter are the ones you accept for yourself." James Jackson had understood something profound. That true success wasn't about proving others wrong, but about recognizing your own worth and creating value in the world. Andre had done both. He had overcome the limitations others tried to place on him and built something meaningful in the process. The journey had transformed not just his circumstances, but his understanding of success itself. As he drove home through the Phoenix night, Andre felt not triumph over those who had once dismissed him, but gratitude for the path that had led him here, to a life where he was fully seen, where his capabilities were recognized, and where he could extend that same recognition to others. The delivery uniform was long gone, but the lesson it had taught him remained. Never judge someone by their surface appearance. The most remarkable capabilities often exist where you least expect to find them, waiting only for the opportunity to be revealed. The Phoenix Symphony Hall was filled to capacity for the annual Arizona Business Leadership Awards. On stage, the Master of Ceremonies was announcing the finalists for Entrepreneur of the Year, the event's most prestigious category. And our final nominee, from Perception Analytics, Andre Jackson. Applause filled the hall as Andre's image appeared on the large screens flanking the stage. The video package highlighted Perception Analytics' growth from a two-person startup to a marketing powerhouse employing over 100 people, with offices in Phoenix, Chicago, and Atlanta. In the audience, Sarah squeezed Andre's arm excitedly. At a table near the front, Layla beamed with pride, sitting beside her husband and their 1-year-old daughter, named Jamie after their father. Victoria was there too, now Perception's chief operating officer, along with several other key team members who had been part of the company's impressive journey. As the ceremony continued and the winner was announced, Andre accepting the award with gracious acknowledgement of his team and family, the moment represented far more than professional recognition. It symbolized a complete transformation from invisibility to influence, from dismissal to distinction. Later that evening, at the reception following the ceremony, Andre found himself speaking with the CEO of a major technology corporation. As they discussed potential collaboration, Andre noticed a familiar face across the room. Blake Hamilton, now working for a mid-sized advertising agency after several challenging years following Hamilton and Pierce's dissolution. Their eyes met briefly, and Blake nodded in acknowledgement. Not friendship exactly, but a recognition of Andre's achievement and perhaps a measure of respect that had been absent in their early encounters. Andre returned the nod, then continued his conversation without dwelling on the past. On the drive home, with the award in the back seat and the memory of the evening's celebrations still fresh, Andre thought about the unlikely path that had brought him here. A chance moment of disrespect had sparked a transformation that might otherwise have taken years to initiate, if it had happened at all. He recalled something his father had often said: "Sometimes your greatest gift comes wrapped in your greatest challenge." The dismissal he had experienced at Hamilton and Pierce had indeed been a gift of sorts, the catalyst that had propelled him to stop hiding his light and step fully into his capabilities. As he pulled into the driveway of his home, modest by the standards of his success, but comfortable and filled with memories, Andre felt a profound sense of completion. The journey from delivery driver to award-winning entrepreneur had required courage, strategy, and persistence, but it had yielded something beyond professional success. The knowledge that he had created a company where people were valued for their true capabilities, not their appearance or position. And perhaps that was the greatest success of all. Not the award, not the financial achievement, not even the respect he now commanded in the business community, but the culture of recognition and opportunity he had built at Perception Analytics. A place where no one was invisible, where potential was nurtured regardless of background, where the next Andre Jackson might find the support to become fully who they were meant to be. As he entered his home, placing the award on a shelf alongside family photos and mementos, Andre smiled at the thought of the delivery driver he had once been, invisible to so many, but carrying within him all the potential that had now been realized. The uniform was long gone, But the journey it had inspired would continue to shape not only his life, but the lives of everyone. Perception analytics touched, a legacy of seeing beyond surfaces to the true value that exists in every person, waiting only for the opportunity to emerge.